I just want to talk a little bit, really in response to what we saw this morning. From the moment that I came into this office, this administration has been focused on solving problems, solution-oriented issues. You know, that's what we're looking at. For instance, when we first came in, we had pools in disrepair, right? Half of the pools in the city were not working. Why were they not working? Why did we not have pools for our citizens? Because we didn't invest in those pools, we didn't buy the parts, we didn't have the people to lifeguard at the pools. It wasn't a priority. We made it a priority, we got it fixed. That's because we're focused on solutions. It's the same reason that we increased our budget for Meals on Wheels this year, because we saw that there were 3,000 seniors on a waiting list, and the private sector had not taken care of that issue. How could we make sure those seniors were getting the food they needed? Solution-oriented policies. That's what we're focused on. Not focused on doing things because of political pressure. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing this morning. In fact, we heard one of the finance members say the other day they put some of the money back for Meals on Wheels simply because they were getting political pressure to do so. Where is the citizen in all this? Where is putting our citizens first in that? It's the same reason that we saw this press conference this morning. It's all because of political pressure from Tallahassee to do something that wasn't even in their heads. But now all of a sudden it is more important to take $1 and put it into the pockets of people that have homes. And by the way, 51% of our citizens are not homeowners. They're renters. They'll get nothing. The average homeowner will get $1, about $1 a month back on property tax rollback, right? But what does that mean for what our citizens are telling us they need? Like pools, or like meals for seniors, or like housing that is affordable. All the money is gone for affordable housing right now. All the money has been taken out for housing that is affordable for our citizens. That drags on our local economy. That is not a people-focused approach. So I'm really frustrated to continue to hear the type of rhetoric that we're hearing about fraudulent programs or programs that aren't needed from government. If the private sector is not solving a problem, it's government's job to step in and at least begin to get a solution for that, like these hungry seniors. So the bottom line for me is I want people to understand that we are working on those issues that people are telling us that are important to them in every town hall we go to, in every time that we communicate with citizens. Please solve the problem of affordability in housing. Our seniors are telling us we need help. People are asking us to pave their roads and to make sure that their sidewalks are cared for. This is, frankly, simply a political move, period. We want to make sure that people have a high quality of life. And in Jacksonville, for years, we have seen an ebb and flow, right? We make some momentum and some progress, and then it gets pulled back. Because there's always a group of people that once that progress starts, they want to pull us back. And that's what we're seeing right now. Jacksonville has enormous momentum. I don't want to go back to the days when we weren't paving our sidewalks, when we weren't feeding our seniors, when we weren't creating more affordable housing, when our downtown was dead, when we couldn't, frankly, even pick up our own trash. I don't want to go back to those days. And to tell people, and I think, frankly, in a very disingenuous way, that this in any way is helping the majority of our citizens, I think is simply wrong. I don't think that if you actually told people the full story, that a millage rollback was going to put a little more than $1 in their pocket, and that they might lose not all, they might lose a number of those services, or at least the amount of services that we can provide in those things they've told us are important are going to be threatened. I don't think they would want that. And in fact, I've had so many people that have communicated with me, Mayor, keep my $1 and spend it on the seniors. Keep my $1 and make sure my housing is more affordable. This constant effort to create a narrative that is frankly just wrong, hurts our city. And that's really all I wanted to say about that. And you guys can ask me any questions about it as you want to.
Madam Mayor, I just talked to a resident who lives near the beaches. I asked him your thoughts on property taxes versus city services. He says, well, I feel like city services go to people who live in downtown. It doesn't help me out here. Your thoughts on people who live on the outer edges of the city and maybe don't see the central infrastructure?
Well, look, like I said, it polls well, right? It polls well. But the truth is, if you really drilled in on that and you said to that person, so is $1 in your pocket, roughly a little more than $1 a month in your pocket if you're a homeowner, is that more important to you than making sure that your pothole gets fixed? Or is it more important to you than making sure that your police and fire services are covered?
So you're saying roads, police, and fire would be affected by this?
What I'm saying is name the city service. Right now, we have the lowest property taxes of any large city in the state of Florida. We've kept them low intentionally. We've been responsible with that property tax rate. We have a AA+ rating from the rating agencies because we've been so responsible. But right now, it barely covers just police and fire. That property tax that we bring in barely, and I mean barely, covers police and fire. What's going to happen next year and the year after and the year after that when this compounds? Because it's not just this year. This year we can probably make it, right? But what happens when that compounds every year and we continue to grow by 17,000 citizens every year and we continue to expand and people need those services? They can say all day long they won't be threatened, but where's that money coming from? Where's it coming from? So I'm saying look at all the services that people tell us are important to them. We hear all the time about infrastructure in the neighborhoods. We hear all the time about people that feel like their housing is out of control and unaffordable. You have to make sure that people understand that everything is predicated on how things affect our economy. And every time we don't invest in these things, and every time that we have to pull money out of these things, it hurts our economy and it hurts our city.
Mayor, you mentioned the housing affordability programs a couple of times. That seems to be the one that City Council did not come to any sort of compromise position on. The criticism I've heard of those particular programs is that it's kind of a lot of money, a couple $1 million, and then only about 60 or 80 people actually benefit from that money.
Look, these are pilot programs. They're pilot programs, but you show that a program works. And I've talked so much about public-private partnerships, Jake. They're so important. Then you bring more of the private sector in. You fund something, and then you show a proof of concept, and you bring more of the private sector in to help with that. And that's what we've done with all of these programs. So look, if we pull that money completely out of affordable housing, we will be the only major city that is not putting local dollars into housing affordability when people are screaming at us that they are drowning in housing costs. So I would say instead of putting up a straw man and saying this is our problem, look over here, let's actually look at what the real problem is. We have insurance costs that are out of control. We have housing costs that are for a lot of people out of control. And again, as I said earlier, 51% of our people rent. Those people will receive nothing back from this rollback. So I just think we have to look at the whole picture. I know it sounds good, but it is my job to try to make sure that we have a good quality of life for all the citizens in this city, not do something because politically it looks good. And that's really when I look at the whole picture of it, it's the only thing I can come up with. This is a council that told us that we were on a fiscal cliff. They even have a fund set aside for the event that we should have a budget crisis next year because they're predicting this fiscal cliff. So how can you argue that on one side and then say, but let's cut the millage rate and give people back $1 but take $15 million out of the services we provide for them? It doesn't make any sense unless it's a political argument, and that's the only argument they can really make.
Speaking of some political arguments, late in the budget hearing on Friday, all the Diamond amendments were adopted, prohibiting funding for DEI, prohibiting funding for people here without legal status, prohibiting funding for abortion even. That one kind of came out of left field. Is that a make it or break it? I mean, do you believe that you can...
Did it come out of left field, Jake? Honestly, did it? Because all of these things were put in simply to basically throw a grenade in the middle of the process. They're not budget items. There's no money attached to them. They don't belong in the budget. And frankly, that whole council knows it. I am really, really disconcerted that went anywhere. But look, it is a distraction from what we're actually dealing with here. Like so much of what we're talking about right now. This whole ticket thing has been, we are dealing with real problems in this city, real issues for our citizens.
Do you think the men on that stage today, the ones who were local city council members, were there because they want to run against you?
I don't know if they want to run against me, but clearly they want to be someplace other than the city council of Jacksonville. I would simply implore them to do your job here, and that's the best way to get another job elsewhere. But I know there are some of them that have their eyes set on Tallahassee and other places, and that seems very evident. But look, I am doing my very best to make sure that we all stay focused on those issues that are important to Jacksonville. And I would implore them to do the same.
What I wanted to ask about the amendments that were tacked on, I mean, does that make the budget untenable? There was some disagreement over if you were to veto the whole budget, one, can you line item something that's not a spending provision?
We're still looking at all that. It doesn't make any sense to me that you could put something into the budget that is not a spending issue, first of all. But if you can, then why couldn't you also veto that provision? If that we're waiting on hearing from the general counsel on all that. It does not belong in the budget. I am, and I think our citizens are so incredibly weary of all these culture wars. I mean, we are moving forward as a city. Our momentum is tremendous right now. There are folks that want to slow it down for political reasons, and I'm not going to allow us to be distracted, regardless of what happens with those issues. I'm not staying there, Jake. I'm not going to stay there and have those arguments every day with a council person who refuses to focus on the issues that are truly important to our citizens. I'm just not going to do it.
There were 9 city council members on that stage today, and I'm doing some math from that, and there are, let's say, 4 votes up for grab on the millage rate. You can't lose any of them. I guess, how do you make the pitch to save those votes? Can you make that pitch to save those votes?
Look, it really comes down to there are some folks that weren't there too,
Yeah.
but there are such clear arguments as to why this is a bad idea. And really will come down to, are you going to choose what is better for the citizens of your city, make sure they have the services they need, or are you going to once again be a part of that group that wants to hold this city back? We have momentum, we need to grab it, and we need to run with it. We don't need to slow down our momentum at a time when we are growing at a pace that is, if we don't make sure we are doing this the right way, then we're not going to have a world-class city, and I want to make sure that we do.
The Mayor, it does look like there's support from 10 council members for the tax cuts. You have the Carrico, the 6 members of the
Yep.
Finance Committee, and then you had 3 other council members who appeared with him at the event this morning. So that's 10. I mean, do you still think that's a fight you can win, or does it look like whatever kind of changes you can make to the budget that came out of the Finance Committee, you're going to be looking at moving funding around elsewhere to fund some of these programs like affordable housing?
Listen, David, we're going to try to continue to get as much of that stuff funded as possible, because that is what our citizens are telling us they want. That's what they want their tax dollars spent on. And we're going to make sure that we try to get as much of that back into the budget as we possibly can. At the end of the day, what council does on millage is what council does. We will find a way to make sure that we're continuing to operate as we can. As I said before, I don't think the big problem will come till the compounding effect comes in. We'll deal with it, right? But it certainly isn't helpful in a year that we are telling people we're going to have a fund over here just to make sure if we go off that budget cliff, that we're going to be okay. Why would we not just take the same millage rate if we're really that concerned about it? Why wouldn't we take the same millage rate that we've been bringing in, that very low millage rate that we're bringing in, take that money that they were going to give everybody back the dollar, or the people with the homes $1, and put that into that fund if they're so concerned about the fiscal cliff? It's a political move. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen. We've certainly seen a willingness to do that. I would simply ask them not to do it. It is not something that we should be doing, and they know it. They know it.
More questions.
Mayor, you have some transfer authority as well, some limited budget transfer authority to move some funds around to fund programs that may not have been fully funded. I know there was talk about possibly the telehealth program that you could possibly move some money around to fill that gap. Is there any other programs that you're seeing that are kind of coming out of the City Council Finance Committee at a lighter weight that you'd like to see and maybe try to find some dollars for?
Well, look, honestly, I would like to see us fully fund that program for Meals for Seniors. Even if we fully fund it, we're still going to have a lot of seniors who are going hungry. I don't think we need to do that. It's not a big part of the budget. And again, it's not a problem that is being solved in the private sector. We need to solve this problem. And obviously, we also need to get some help from outside, which we're continuing to build. So I would like to do that. There's a lot of initiatives I'd like to get back in the budget. In terms of transfer, I don't even want to think about that until we get through this budget process. I mean, we're just now coming out of the Finance Committee. Let's see what we can talk to the full council about to see what we can actually get back in. But I am going to stay laser focused on making sure that this city moves forward regardless. And no amount of political, press conferences or maneuverings is going to change that fact. And I just wanted to make sure that it was clear that that's how I see this.
Can I just do that every year there seems to be an attempt by City Council to eliminate the position that Parvez Ahmed has. And it seems to be a goal again this year with this DEI amendment, some of the cuts they've made to your budget for just the office itself. Do you expect when October 1st rolls around, Parvez Ahmed will still be working for the mayor's office?
Yes.
And what do you think is
Listen,
behind all these efforts?
They all praised his move to data analytics when he did, and how wonderful it would be to have Dr. Parvez Ahmed working on data analytics, because that's his thing, and what a brilliant move. And now all of a sudden, it's not. So I don't know what shifted there beyond the fact that at some point, there are some folks that really don't want to get the facts on things, because when you actually have the facts in front of you, it's tougher to make the arguments that aren't real. But Parvez will be there. Yes, he'll be there.
Are you going to have to reduce salaries, like with what they've offered you?
And let me also make another point clear. There were no bonuses given to any of my staff. That did not happen. The city staff up here got the same raises that everybody across the city did, which I believe was 3%. That was last year.
Are you going to have to reduce, or are you able to maintain salaries based on all the cuts they've had to executive salaries?
I haven't looked at all of it yet, Jake. I would love, if you look at the percentage of the budget that we're talking about here, this is just a petty political argument, is really all it is. They need to allow me to do what I need to do and what I was frankly elected to do by the citizens of this city. I was elected to do a job, and I should be able to do that job with the staff that I think is necessary to do that job. And if you compare my staff to the staff of the previous administration, in some of the areas where they're talking about, you hear about it all the time, some of the areas they're talking about, their staff was bigger than our staff until right before they left, when they cut a bunch of positions, right before they walked out the door. So a lot of this is just being created for political talking points. We're going to move on from that after today. I'm not going to address this every week, but I do think it's important coming out of this process that you guys understand what is happening here. This is, unfortunately, it seems like we're getting into election year politics before we really should be getting into election year politics. And I would love to see us focused on the needs of our city and our love for Jacksonville and moving this city forward as we all were elected and promised to do. Thank you.